Welcome to Supercharge Your Closing Process by Scaling Quote to Revenue, a panel discussion brought to you by the Controllers Council. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council, and let's take a quick look at the agenda. First, I'll introduce our panelists, and then I'll share some brief information about our sponsor. Then we'll get right to our solution overview and a fireside chat with our panelists. Finally, we'll have audience Q&A. So with that, I'll cover some brief housekeeping. Attendees, submit your questions via GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to as many as possible in the hour. And next, you'll receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need for notes or screenshots. So with that, allow me to introduce our panelists. Prakash Raina is the co-founder of Subscribe, the quote-to-revenue platform for modern SaaS companies. Before starting Subscribe, Prakash led the business technology team at Okta, where he scaled Okta's business systems from handling 100 million to 1 billion in revenue. Leslie Huey is VP Accounting Operations and Finance Transformation at Okta, the leader in identity access management. In her role, she's focused on building the operational scale through process and technology. So let me tell you a little bit about our sponsor. Subscribe is the adaptive CPQ, billing, and revenue platform for modern SaaS companies. Totally unified, no silos, zero reconciliation from quote to revenue. Learn more at subscribe.com. And with that, I'll turn it over to Prakash Raina.
Thank you very much, Neil. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully, if in this session, if we can help you to save few hours, few days, every month and every quarter, I think that would be an amazing gift from our side to all of you on the Valentine's Day. So quickly going through agenda, we'll talk about how exactly we have seen that the modern SaaS has evolved in the last few years. We talk about the importance of quote to revenue in the book closing. We definitely want to, this whole session is about how can we expedite the book closing? How can we think about the whatever time it takes today to close your book? If the company, your company grow 10x more in revenue or the business complexity, how you can still close the book either within the same time frame or even a better. We'll talk about some of the best practice, and I'm super excited to have a fireside chat with my friend and an amazing finance leader, Leslie. So if you go to the next, Nick. So just going through quickly on the evolution of SaaS businesses. If you really look at the trend wise, probably early 2000 was the era where Salesforce came and some of the other SaaS vendor came, and we started thinking about this annual or the monthly subscription, where there is a fixed cost you are paying every month or every quarter or every year. From there, probably early 2010, 2015, it is starting getting a little bit more complex, where you have recurring revenues, different subscription, static bundle, you have a different product line also. In fact, 606 came around 2017, 2018 time frame. So that also brought some more concept of around the subscription as well as the contract or the recurring billing side. And what we feel right now the industry is going through is more like a SaaS 3.0. And the different attributes which are contributing to this 3.0 are now most of the companies are selling more than one product line. Almost every company has more than one pricing method to sell their product. You see a lot of multi-year transaction. You see a lot of midterm changes during that contract, during that initial term. A lot of ramp of revenue, the consumption-based billing, like the pay-as-you-go model or different variation of the pay-as-you-go model. A lot of these, which we also call it as the agile pricing and packaging, are very common within the SaaS business and modern SaaS business. And we feel that, okay, that definitely needs a different treatment, a different approach to the book closing versus what we were doing 5, 10, or 20 years back in the same SaaS business. Go to the next. So if you go a little bit more deeper into that, what exactly the modern SaaS is going through right now. So if we think through some of the core component of the book closing or sales or the finance processes, the very first thing is the pricing model that the company has. There is a lot of different type of discount companies are doing, the percentage of ARR, the consumption base, the bundle, all of these are definitely a part which is making the, I would say, the book closing or the quote to revenue a little bit more complex, or it does need a different approach than how the situation was 10 or 15 or 20 years back. As I said, a lot of companies, almost every modern SaaS wants to do a multi-year transaction with their customer. And if you are selling more than one product line, or you have more than one product that you are offering to your customer, likely you will sell more than one same product to the customer. The discounting, the ramp deal, I'm sure that, okay, a lot of you are familiar, but a lot of us are familiar with the ramp for all the complex reason, because we know that if there is a ramp transaction where the ARR or any other parameter are changing year over year, it does make our sales, our billing, our revenue recognition, our book closing a little bit more complex. The amendment, the upsell, the downsell, the cross-sell, you have acquired another company, you launched a new product, you want to promote that. All of those creates a, I would say, a little bit more complex transaction from a sales side, and that definitely have a dominoes effect on your billing, your AR, as well as the revenue recognition. And of course, then that all of these impact how you run your book closing process. The terms and condition, the custom terms and all are, what do you write during the sales cycle? What exactly the T&Cs that you have agreed with your customer that does impact the revenue transaction, and of course your book closing. Just for an example, if I give a customer that there is a 60 days cancelable clause that, okay, if you don't like the product, you can cancel it. The sales can put it as a term, but the impact of that on your revenue recognition or how exactly the auditors are looking at your number may be very different. And when I go back to the 606, which I referred earlier, it has definitely changed a lot of, or brought a lot of new way to recognize the revenue versus how the industry was doing, like the 605 or previous version. The different way to amortize. And if you have a SaaS as well as the professional service, as well as maybe the one-time cost, how exactly you allocate the revenue between each other, just because you were trying to close the deal and you gave, say, the implementation as a free of cost. The SSP, I have spoken to a lot of companies, the private company, public companies. People are still afraid of the SSP side, or still see that, okay, it is a lot of work before we adopt an SSP model for the company, be it the range or a fixed value. All of these are still super complex, and that is the need for the modern SaaS business. Go to the next, Neil. So knowing all of these complexity, knowing all of these different parameters which the modern SaaS needs today, we feel that the quote to revenue has become a lot more important today. And I'm using here the quote to revenue versus, if you say 5, 7, 10 years back, there was a lot of concept about quote to order, order to cash, and cash to revenue. And there is a lot of things which were just happening within that siloed process or the system wise. We think that, okay, probably now for the modern SaaS to thrive in this era and meet all the compliance and regulation need, as well as be very competitive in the market with different pricing offering, trying to give different product line, M&As and all, the company should start thinking about the quote to revenue. So some of the things which is the changing environment, there's something which is happening at the macro level, the 606. Again, it has been 5+ years, but still there are things that, okay, companies are adopting with respect to the 606, because a lot of, maybe you have or you are part of a company where the product was mainly the perpetual license earlier, but now since everybody's moving to the cloud, you may have started offering a cloud business. And then 606 definitely brings a lot more complexity to that. Now, what happens on the quoting side? As I said, it's a recurring business. We are talking about a multi-year deal with respect to the recurring billing and the changing entitlement year over year. What happens on the quoting does impact everything on the billing and as well as the revenue recognition. I've also seen that a lot of companies now, when they are performing really well, I do see the revenue team, the revenue accounting team or revenue operation team, they are very much part of a much early in the process. When there is an NPI, there is a sales process being defined, when there is a discount rules are being defined, or the TNCs, which I mentioned, the revenue teams are very much involved to make sure that, okay, we are aligned with what you do on the sales side or the go-to-market. We are aware that how it will impact on the billing, AR, revenue recognition, and of course on the book closing side. And of course, as we know, I have spoken to many CFOs or controller, and if you really go and dissect your current book closing process and see that where exactly it is taking a lot of time, you have found that, okay, the revenue is definitely the one of the major chunk where it is taking time, because those metrics are absolutely critical for the book closing also. Now, how exactly the growing challenges side, we think that because, as I mentioned, there is still companies or there is still many vendors or a lot of approach are around the silo, quote to order, order to cash, and cash to revenue. And then we are trying to either put a system or processes just as part of those siloed process. And now what it does is, of course, it creates a lot of these custom or processes talking to each other or no end-to-end view, but it also adds, like, the same data is duplicated at multiple places. Now every team is looking at a different place for the same data, and that requires a lot of data reconciliation. I still see that a lot of processes at many companies are left at the end of the month or end of the quarter to reconcile. And that is where the revenue team struggle a lot, when now you have keep closing the deals throughout the 90 days of the quarter, and now